live. All right. Hi, everybody. So Sherry Shisha, Powered by Quilting here. We are doing month 6 of our Summer Delight block of the month. This is the last month of this block of the month. Okay. We are going to be making the top and bottom rectangles that are pinwheels. But instead of making the entire block, we're actually going to just make the unit, the pinwheel unit, because honestly, if you want to make the rest of the pinwheel units, we'll be here for a long time, but it's the same technique over and over and over again. Now, this is what this looks like. So this is this top little section, this top banner is what we're considering our month 6 block. You're making 2 of them. However, on this stream, I'm really only just going to make one of those pinwheel units, as we're going to make 12 of them for the top and 12 of them for the bottom to finish out the block. But it's a basic block, and I chose this for month 6. Not only is it because it's framing the top and the bottom of the quilt, it is also something that is a little bit easier. We've already made pinwheels. These are just much larger, and it also gives you time to finish out any of the remaining blocks that you hadn't finished in previous months. Next month, on the second Saturday at noon, we will be actually doing the final construction and sewing all of the blocks together to make the quilt top, okay? So, let's get started. For month 6, you're gonna need 3 different types of fabric. It's gonna be fabric D, fabric H, D, H, and J, and background, all right? They're all the same size because we're making half square triangles of the same size. Now, like we've done half square triangles in the past, what you're going to do is you're going to take your background square and draw a line diagonal to diagonal. Okay? So you can do that this way. Like so. The other thing is that in my camera view for my machine, you can see that I use clearly perfect angles. That's what these lines are. If you're using clearly perfect angles, you don't necessarily need to draw every single line. It makes it a little bit faster. But if you don't have that, draw your lines diagonal to diagonal. You're going to put a background piece in one of the print squares. In this case, I'm going to use fabric D on top of each other. And you're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side of that line. Okay? And just because I'm not going to be making the full month 6 block today, we're going to just do one set. Okay. And now we're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from that drawn line. And then we're going to sew it on the other side as well. Now that we have sewn our piece, we're going to go ahead and cut on the drawn line that we did. Okay? If you've purchased the trimmer A's or the clearly slotted trimmers, you're going to need trimmer A to trim down your half square triangles. Okay? I'm going to do that with one of them. You're going to align your stitch line with a stitch line on the ruler. You're going to trim off the 2 sides and trim off the dog ears. Now, because you've done this, you can go ahead and press this open. Press it open to finish out your half square triangles. So I have a couple of them already made. Now, in case you don't, I'm going to go ahead and press this open. In case you don't have a clearly perfect trimmer, you are going to want to use either a block or just a normal ruler. Okay, pressed it open. I'm going to take a normal square ruler. I'm going to say, your 6.5 inch ruler. I'm going to put the diagonal line on the diagonal line of my sewn line. And I'm going to make sure that I have enough on all 4 sides of the final finished size of this half square triangle. I'm going to trim off 2 sides, flip it over, and trim the other 2. Okay? To square up my half square triangle. So you will do this with all of your print squares and your 3 colors. with your background. Okay, so you're going to end up with quite a few half square triangles. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to be making pinwheel blocks. Okay, like so. We are going to be making 8 of each of these colors, so there's going to be 24 pinwheel blocks in total. The way we're going to sew this together is we're going to sew down like a 4-patch. We're going to sew these two together, and then we're going to press the seams, press the seams and then sew the center seam. In order to get all of the seams to nest across that row, what I like to do, instead of spinning my seams, I mean, you can do that, is to essentially alternate 180 as I'm putting the pinwheel blocks together. Okay? So we're going to go ahead, put these right sides together, and we're going to sew these down. I'm going to go ahead and go press my seams in alternating directions. So I have 2 rows that are sewn together and connected based off of the really fun chain piecing thread that's connecting them together, because I did not cut those apart. Okay, so that is what I currently look like. I have 2 top rows, bottom rows are kind of dangling together. I'm going to fold those in half. And I'm going to take a fork pin, and I'm going to pin these 2 together. Okay. Using a fork pin, I pin on either side of my seam. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew across that top edge to sew my pinwheel together. If you're using clover fork pins, just make sure you slow down when you get to the pins, and that you don't break a needle or throw your machine out of time. All right, so once that's done, you're going to press this open. You can essentially spin your seams if you like, but in this case, if you press to one direction, that is okay. Because what's going to happen is that when you sew all of your pinwheels together, I'll show you this on the back side. So notice I have these seams going in opposite directions, but this seam, both of them go down because that's the last seams that I pressed. You're going to have the same block, but then this next block that sits next to it, you're going to rotate 180, so the seam down the middle of row 6 will be spinning in opposite directions. So the seam goes down, this next block, the seams will go up, etc. Okay? That is all I actually have for you for month 6. We make 8 of each color, so you'll end up with 24, 12 on top, 12 on bottom. But this is a nice little breather to then make sure that you can catch up on all of the previous blocks that you've made, to make sure you can have everything done for next month for when we do the quilt top assembly. If you have any questions or anything that you need for this quilt, comment below and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. The other thing is, if you are now just finding my channel and seeing this quilt and you're like, oh, hey, I would like to do this, in the comments there are the link to the pattern and a link to a quilt kit, so you can actually get all the fabric for the quilt top and binding to make this quilt. That's all I have for you today. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I hope you have a great rest of the month. I'll see you in October for the quilt top assembly.